think that the black Americans have been the only real diehard Americans here, because we're the only ones who carried the process through the process. That everyone else has to sort of like skip stages. We're the ones who marched, we're the ones who carried the Bible, we're the ones who carried the flag, we're the ones who tried to go through the courts. And being born American didn't seem to matter. Because we were born Americans, but we still had to fight for what we were looking for. And we still had to go through those channels and those
I don't really care what you have to say. Facts over fiction is the motto replay. Muhammad Ali came up from the clay. Grassroots built up this USA. Now knowing your history will get played. Equip yourself cause we came to slay any opponent that's up in our way. Look at Malcolm X and his
All right, test 1, 2, test 1, 2. Just want to make sure that I have the sound here. All right, test 1, 2, test 1, 2. Seems like we are good to go there. Get a little background music jumping off here a little bit, little something, something. Not too loud, but enough so everybody can hear. Thanks, everyone, for joining. This is Emi and the Mass Media Group. My name is Jamoya, and today we're going to be talking about some California reparations bills, or quote unquote repair bills. But before I go on, I'm so delighted to have a guest on. I get lonely sometimes on this platform, and I do miss Kim and Darlene. So shout out to Kim and Darlene, other partners with ETN. But yes, we have a wonderful and beautiful guest today. And, you know, I would probably just introduce her with long 10 minutes of introduction, but I'll keep it short. So I'd just like to welcome everybody to the stage. Miss Sharice Cryer. How you doing today, sis?
I'm doing well. How are you, fam?
You know, I'm doing well. You know, today, tonight, this evening, I guess 6:40 p.m. PST. I think some people on the East Coast, you know, a little farther ahead of time. Doing well. We're about to get into some interesting topics today.
All right.
So thanks for joining. I know most people probably know you on the platform, right? But for those that don't know who you are, do you mind just giving the people a brief introduction of who you are?
Sure. I am a lawyer. I'm a reparations activist, self-proclaimed advocate for the Black community, and a little bit of a troublemaker and boat shaker. So I like to rock the boat. That's about it.
And rock the boat, you do. But it's a good shakeup. We need that shakeup every once in a while, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right. So before we go on, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. Let's see here. Let's see. The first slide will be, if you have a chance, go check out reparationsnow.com or go on to Tubi. You can check out Reparations First documentary. And we are working on the second one coming out in 2026. And as a matter of fact, we had a great chance to sit down with the one and only who we're actually speaking with right now, Miss Sharice Cryer. And she is going to be a feature in this second part of the betrayal, because last year 8/31/24 was not only a betrayal, but Man, I don't even know what word would you call it outside of a betrayal, Sharice?
It was emotional.
That too.
That was an emotional day for me.
Emotional, backstabbing, all the adjectives
Hmm.
we can name. But yeah, thank you, Sharice, for coming on the platform and all the work that you do and all the reparationists and everybody and advocates, allies for participating not only in this documentary, but just what you do in general for this cause, because it is a debt and it's something that America definitely owes. So greatly appreciate everybody for staying in tuned, and we are planning on releasing that sometime in 2026. All right, when you have a chance, please go to our store at etnmediagroupstore.com. That's etnmediagroupstore.com, where you can get the latest merch. We got some reparations now. We also got a little CJEC merch there too. Maybe just one shirt, but you support CJEC, you can support ETM, and proceeds will be going to CJEC. So shout out to CJEC. You can go to cjec-official.org for more information on the number one lineage-based, California lineage-based reparations advocacy group. All right. If you go shop on Amazon, the link is in the description, or you can hit that QR code. You can also support our platform there as well. All right. And if you haven't had a chance, we actually did a review on The Highest to Lowest. Sharice, did you ever see that movie or no?
I haven't seen it yet.
You haven't seen it yet? It's actually a good movie. I was actually quite shocked. The box office numbers, I mean, look, 1.5 million is a lot for us average, everyday American, right? But for a movie coming out, and I know, you've lived in Southern California around Hollywood. I mean, 1.5 million if that's correct, I'm hoping those numbers aren't correct. But as far as I'm aware, those were the opening box office numbers, 1.5 million. That's not good. I mean, especially since, Denzel himself, I could be wrong, but I'm sure he gets at least 20 mil plus a pick. At minimum. So hopefully those numbers change. It's an excellent movie. I do recommend people to go check it out. I think it's coming out on streaming soon. So
okay.
Yeah, these movies are coming out quick on streaming. You have a chance. Last Sunday, Kim, myself, and Darlene, we commemorated August 31st, 24 for Black History, or Black August, I should say, the betrayal, never forget. So you can check that out when you have a chance. And yes, I'm a first-time author. Wrote my first book called Mr. Uncomfortable Takes a Chance. When you have a chance, it's out now. Go check it out. Working out on my audiobook as well. Got some great character voiceover actors as well. So please check that out. And if you want something alternative regarding some relationship motivation stuff too, you can go to MrUncomfortable.com or go to the YouTube page right there. The QR codes are available and it's in the link. Greatly appreciate everybody's support there. And we're also working on the boots on the ground. We're going to be posting this. Kim and myself, we had the great opportunity to be at the grand opening for the first Black-owned grocery store here in Sacramento. Can you believe that one? So shout out to our good brothers and sisters doing our thing. They're actually originally from, I think, Memphis. I was going to say Mississippi. Memphis, Tennessee. So came out to California and decided to set up shop here, literally here in Sacramento. Shout out to them. So, Sharice, let's get into it. Let's actually start with, I'm going to roll a video here. This was at the appropriations hearing, and I got to give credit where credit is due to Antonio Ray Harvey. He had a chance to interview Buffy Wicks, who is the chair of the Appropriations Committee, last week. Now, the bills that we're going to be talking about passed the Appropriations Committee, and they're on their way to the floor. I don't know if it's going to be scheduled this week or next week, but I believe September 12th is the last day where all bills are going to be heard. So let's see this interview that Antonio Ray Harvey did with Buffy Wicks.
SB 518, reparative justice bill. Just trying to get it clarity. That was the Bureau removed from under the guidance of the DOJ. Is that what the?
I think so, but let me have Shannon get back to you because I can't remember exactly the specificity as to why, but I'm not totally positive, but we can get you that answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
But these bills did move along. So
yes, they moved along. They were important bills, I think, from our perspective, from the body's perspective, from leadership's perspective, that we keep moving these bills along because they're just really important and critical. So,
So there wasn't any financial implications that were barring them, obviously, because they are moving along, right?
Yeah, and I think, we're always weighing like the cost of something versus the impact, and that's the constant balance with all of these bills. And I think with this suite of bills, these have a big impact, they're important, they're critical. So that's why we wanted to move them forward. So
how do you, on the reparations bills,
Yep.
both bills advanced, but they set off a pretty fiery debate when they were in the hearings with some of the reparation advocates themselves saying,
Yep.
this is not needed, just give us the compensation already. I mean, how do you respond to that?
I mean, I would certainly talk to the authors, right? They're the ones managing these bills day in and day out and advocating for them. And I think trying to figure out how we can land this in the most equitable way. And so there is, I think, from our perspective, deference to the authors who are leading the bills, and certainly sort of following their lead as they usher these bills through. But certainly I didn't want to stand in the way.
Well, what is your perspective on SB 15 by Senator Richardson, which would the demographic data for specific African American, Black American groups?
Yeah.
What was the deciding factor on moving that?
I'm trying to remember.
SB 515, Senator Laura Richardson.
Can I get back to you on that one because I can't
Yeah.
remember exactly. Okay.
All right, family. So that was the chair of the Appropriations Committee in the Assembly, Buffy Wicks, and that was Antonio Moore, who had that wonderful conversation with her. So we're actually not going to be going over SB 15 today, but the two main bills we are going to be focusing on is SB 518, the Descendants Bureau bill, and AB 57. We'll probably touch up real quickly on SB 437 and SB 388, the California Latino Commission bill as well. But primarily we're going to be focusing on 518 and 57, AB 57. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and then we will get into it. I don't know. Sharice, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see it.
Wonderful. All right. So we're going to go ahead. For those, I'm going to assume that people haven't come to the channel, on our platform before. So we literally read all the bills. I know some of you think it might be boring, but that's what we do. So welcome to the platform. I appreciate you. Please like, share, and subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. But this is what we do. So the first bill we're going to be looking at is SB 518. It's titled Descendants of Enslaved Persons Reparations. In this legislative cycle 2025-2026. All right. These are the recent updates or the amendments of since yesterday, as a matter of fact. So these are fresh and new. All right. So this bill is introduced by Senator Weber Pearson. She's the lead chair of the California Legislative Black Caucus. Co-authors Senators Richardson, Smallwood Cuevas, Assembly members Bonta, Bryan, El Harari, Gibson, Jackson, Calra, McKenna, Ransom, Sharp Collins, and Wilson. All right, so predominantly it looks like all the CLBC members have co-authored this bill along with Calra, and I believe Calra is the chair of the Judiciary Committee in the Assembly. All right, here we go. All right. Looks like some amendments in Act 2, Chapter 2, commencing 12910. Okay. Government and making an appropriation therefor. Legislative Digest. All right, so let's see. SB 518 as amended will repair descendants of enslaved persons reparations, former law, Chapter 319 of the Statutes of 2020 until July 1st, 2023. Establish a task force to, among other things, identify, compile, and synthesize the relevant corpus of evidentiary documentation of the institution of slavery that existed with the United States and the colonies as specified, and to recommend the form of compensation that should be awarded, the instrumentalities through which it should be awarded, and who should be eligible for this compensation. Okay, it's very interesting how compensation is mentioned in this bill, but yeah, I haven't seen any compensation yet coming out of anything yet. So anyway, I'm just saying. All right, existing law. Here's some amendments here. Existing law, and just by the way, for the people that don't know, actually in California, because there might be other people out the state listening. I mean, California, when amendments are made, they usually put the up-to-date revisions in blue, and then usually in red, they'll strike it out, the older or the previous mentioned, I guess you could say, wording in it. So, all right, here we go. Existing law, the California Fair Employment and Housing Act establishes the Civil Rights Department and sets forth its powers and duties, including, among other things, receiving, investigating, and prosecuting complaints alleging violations of civil rights as specified. This bill would establish a bureau for descendants of American slavery within the department under the control of the director, who would be appointed by the governor and confirmed by the state or by the Senate. The bill would require the Bureau, as part of its duties, to verify an individual's status as a descendant and would require proof of individual descendant status to be a qualifying criterion for benefits authorized by the state for descendants. To accomplish these goals, the bill would require the Bureau to be composed of a genealogy division, an education and outreach division, and a legal affairs division. The bill would impose various requirements on the Bureau relating to the collection, storage, and disclosure of personal and genetic information as specified. Okay, some information. It says stricken from the record. Okay, the bill would authorize the Bureau to receive monies from any federal, state, or local grant and from any non-governmental entity as specified, and would continuously appropriate any non-general fund monies received for purposes of the Bureau. This bill would make implementation of its provisions contingent upon appropriation by the legislature as specified. This bill would include findings and declarations relating to a gift of public funds. Existing constitutional provisions require that a statute that limits the right of access to the meetings of public bodies or the writings of public officials and agencies be adopted, with findings demonstrating the interests protected by the limitation and the need for protecting that interest. This bill would make legislative findings to that effect. All right. Vote majority, appropriation, yes. Fiscal committee, yes. Local program, no. All right. Section 1, Chapter 2, commencing with Section 12910, is added to Part 2.8 of Division 3 of Title 2 of the Government Code to read 12910A. It is the intent of the legislature in establishing the Bureau to establish an initial framework, and it is the intent of the legislature that the scope and responsibilities of the Bureau may expand as necessary to fulfill its mission and address additional harms as identified. B, it is the intent of the legislature that as the Bureau expands its scope in the future, shall do both of the following: address the lasting harms of disenfranchisement, segregation, discrimination, exclusion, neglect, and violence impacting both descendants and communities, as described in chapters 1 to 13, inclusive of the California Reparations Report. All right, so we're just gonna make note of that and come back to that. I'd like to get Sharice's input on that line there, but we'll read the whole thing and then we're just gonna come back to some of these points. To advise on reparative remedies to target the persistent consequences of this legacy, guided by chapters 14 to 33, inclusive of the California Reparations Report. Implementation of this chapter shall be contingent upon appropriation of sufficient funding by the legislature in the annual budget or other statute for that purpose. For purposes of this chapter, Bureau means the Bureau for Descendants of American Slavery. Descendants means individuals who can establish direct lineage to a person who, prior to 1900, was subjected to American chattel slavery and meets at least one of the following criteria. 1. Was emancipated through legal or extra legal means, including self-purchase, manumission, executive or legislative action, military service, or judicial ruling. Obtained freedom through a gradual abolition, statutes or constitutional amendments, was classified as a fugitive from bondage under federal or state law, was deemed contraband by military authorities, rendered military or civic service while subject to legal restrictions based on ancestry historically associated with slavery. Director means the director of the Bureau for Descendants of American Slavery. 12912. The Bureau for Descendants of American Slavery is hereby established within the department. All right. The Bureau shall be under the direct control of a director who shall be responsible to the Director of Civil Rights. The director shall be appointed by the governor and confirmed by the Senate and shall perform all duties, exercise all powers, assume and discharge all responsibilities, and carry out and effect all purposes vested by law in the Bureau. C. The Bureau shall establish a mission statement consistent with the recommendations from the former Reparations Task Force established pursuant to Chapter 319 of the Statutes of 2020. Put a pin in that one. 12913. As part of its duties, the Bureau shall verify an individual's status as a descendant. Proof of an individual's descendant status shall be a qualifying criterion for benefits authorized by the state. For descendants to accomplish these goals, the Bureau shall include all the following divisions: a genealogy division to do all the following, establish a process to certify descendants of American slaves, create a method for eligible individuals to submit claims and receive compensation or restitution for those particular harms California inflicted upon the claimant or their family, establish an equitable alternative qualifying criterion for benefits for descendants authorized by the state. In cases where an individual's status as a descendant cannot be confirmed or proven, support potential reparations claimants and assist individuals in verifying genealogical lineage by applying established evidence-based methodology to aid in determining eligibility. 5A. For purposes of this division and notwithstanding any of the law, the division shall utilize a process established pursuant to Chapter 4.8 of Division 1 as added by Senate Bill 437 of the 2025-26 regular session for all matters relating to the verification of a claimant's eligibility of a descendant. Definitely put a pin in that one. All right. This paragraph shall become operative only if Senate Bill 437 of the 2025-2026 regular session is enacted and takes effect on or before January 1st, 2026. Put a pin. B1, as they would say, B1, an education and outreach division to develop and implement a public education campaign regarding all of the following: the cycle of gentrification, displacement, and exclusion. B, the connection between redlining and gentrification. C, the history of discriminatory urban planning in California. D, of the findings presented in the California Reparations Report. 2A, to establish the goals of the subdivision, the division may collaborate with colleges and universities, community organizations, and individuals, including but not limited to the entities included in Section 15.80 of the Budget Act of 2024.
Just put a pin in that.
Boom. Yes, gotta put a definite pin in that. Section 15.80. All right. The entities included in subdivision B of section 15.80 of the Budget Act 2024 shall coordinate and implement education and outreach activities in consultation with the division. Upon the Bureau's request, the entities shall regularly report to the division on these activities and provide guidance to ensure alignment with the Bureau's objectives. A legal affairs division to do all the following: provide legal advice, counsel, and services to the Bureau and its officials, ensure that the Bureau's programs are administered in accordance with applicable legislative authority, advise the head of the Bureau on legislative, legal, and regulatory initiatives, serve as an external liaison on legal matters with other state agencies and other entities, conduct a review of past and current laws as well as proposed legislation to determine whether those measures have caused, are causing, or may continue to cause harm. The division shall provide recommendations to mitigate or eliminate any harm identified in its review. 12914A, non-public personal and genetic information held under the Bureau's authority shall be collected, held, and disclosed only as relevant and necessary to accomplish the purposes set forth in this chapter and in a manner permitted by and consistent with federal and California data privacy laws. Before asking individuals to supply information for its system of records, the Bureau shall inform each individual of the following: the authority that authorizes the solicitation of the information and whether disclosure of that information is mandatory or voluntary, the principal purpose or purposes for which the information is intended to be used, the routine uses that may be made of the information, and the effects on the individual, if any, of not providing all or any part of the requested information. C, the Bureau shall not disclose any data contained in its system of records by any means of communication to any person except as necessary to fulfill the purposes of this chapter and pursuant to either a written request by or the written consent of the individual to whom the record pertains. Interagency, or public disclosure shall not be permitted without that written authorization. All right, we have a little bit more to go. A lot has been redacted. All right, 12915A. Notwithstanding any other law, the Bureau may receive monies from any federal, state, or local grant and from any non-governmental entity, including any private donation or grant for the purposes of this chapter. B, notwithstanding section 13340, any non-general fund monies received pursuant to this section are hereby continuously appropriated to the Bureau for the purposes of this chapter without regard to fiscal year. C, receipt of funds pursuant to this section shall not confer any right or authority on a donor or grantor to direct, control, or influence the division's programs, operations, or policy decisions. If any clause, sentence, paragraph, provision, part, or section of this chapter or the application thereof for any reason is adjudged by a court of competent jurisdiction to be invalid, that judgment shall not affect, impair, or invalidate the remainder of this chapter and the application thereof, but shall be confined in its operation to the clause, sentence, paragraph, or part thereof directly involved in the controversy in which the judgment shall have been rendered and to the circumstances involved. All right, redacted. All right, let's see. Dang. Okay, I guess they were like no property reclamation.
None.
Vision.
I think Tina McKenna's other bill may fill that void. Not sure.
All right. Section 2, the legislature finds and declares that the addition of Chapter 2, commencing with Section 12910, to Part 2.8 of Division 3 of the Title 2 of the Government Code, by this act serves a public purpose. Okay, got it. Okay, we'll skip down. Government sponsor, okay, the welfare, okay, section 3, all right, I guess let me finish this last paragraph. The legislature finds and declares that section 1 of this act, which adds chapters 2, okay, to part division, poses a limitation on the public's right of access to the meetings of public bodies or the writings of public officials and agencies within the meaning of section 3 of article 1 of the California Constitution. Pursuant to the constitutional provision, the legislature makes the following findings to demonstrate the interest protected by this limitation and the need for protecting that interest. In order to protect the personal and genetic information of individuals, it is necessary to limit disclosure of that information to only the limited purpose for which it is collected. All right, so here we go, Sharice. We're going to start at the top. All right, so I guess, first of all, do you have anything to say in terms of Senator Weber, the CLBC introduction? If not, then we'll continue down.
Nope, not yet.
All right. Okay, we'll skip this. Anything about this new amendment, existing law, the California Employment Housing Act establishes a civil rights department? Anything there?
Yes. So I think this, I mean, we all want a standalone agency, but this is a good place, in my opinion, to move the Bureau. So take a step back. The Little Hoover Commission approved a reorganization of the Housing and Community Development and the Bureau of Consumer Affairs departments. They're going to be two separate departments, and the Civil Rights Department will be moving under the Housing and Community Development. Civil Rights Department was, I think, called Fair Housing and Employment or something before it was renamed. But that is where the Civil Rights Department will be housed. It will not be under the Justice Department. It will not be under the law enforcement arm, even though this says a Civil Rights Department. It will be under Housing and Community Development.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you for that clarification. So I know some of the community and some other organizations were highly suspect of this bill, this bureau going underneath the DOJ for, many concerns.
Yeah.
Especially with the Black community, right?
Yeah, I'm just going to interject here. When I looked at the legal analysis for the bill, you sent that to me a few months ago, and thank you. It mentioned the Japanese internment victims and how this was a harms-based approach, and that was that was the precedent they were using. And the Japanese, when they received their reparations, there was a division created under the Civil Rights, the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. They had a bureau that was created for, and it had a sunset. It was created for a brief time just to process claims. It did not do anything else. It did not collect DNA. It may have collected ancestral information as far as, who were your parents, et cetera, if the parents were deceased, and the person was a child and had been interned with their parents. But this is where I believe this initial recommendation came from, was from one of the former task force members. And I was very adamant that, why are you having communication with someone who's not in our community about where this bureau should go? Because I've been advocating for a bureau, especially at the federal level. Look, I even pulled my letter up. I have receipts. I can show it. Since at least 2021, maybe before that, 2020. So, if I'm been having a conversation about this with individuals or trying to for all of these years, why would you go to someone who's not in our community to see where this should be? So I'm glad that it's been moved.
Yeah, and since it's not under the DOJ now and this bill passes, then it's actually going to be something that the governor is going to be responsible for appointing.
Absolutely.
Some of these director, I guess, of this new
Yes.
bureau. So something to note as well. Let's see here. Let's see. Criterion State. So I guess let's go into this genealogy division just real quick since we're here. It does mention the genealogy division. Now, as you're aware, Sharice, with SB 437, which let me pull that bill up since we have it here. All right, so on a pull this one up as well. This actually passed as well in the appropriation, so this will be, I don't know, it might be voted on the floor. Who knows?
Boo.
Yeah, boo. Right, big boo. As a matter of fact, you know what we're going to do since we're on this, because we can do that. And we rarely do this. But every once in a while, you got to get the boo. All right. So yes, SB 437, this claim eligibility, genealogy, and descendancy, California State University. All right, so we're not going to read this because we've been over this a whole bunch of times. But just to keep it short, for those that don't know, it's basically a research and study bill that's going to be going through the CSU system, to keep it short. And it looks like on or before the start of the 2029-2030 academic year is when, here, let me just read it verbatim. Okay, it says the California State University shall explore options to determine how to confirm an individual's status as a descendant. The California State University shall also establish a process for conducting or verifying genealogical research to confirm eligibility for reparative claims on or before the start of the 2029-2030 academic year, and commence the work of establishing the process on or before the start of the 2026-27 academic year. Funding from Subdivision A may be used to support student participation in support of this goal. So, Sharice, from my understanding, this is saying basically from 2026-2027 academic year all the way to, 2029-2030 academic year, that this process could be going from that time. And that's even before, people can even look to like getting their checks and so forth. So, is that from what you're understanding too?
Yes, and we were, I don't want to say we, the public was explicitly told by Senator Weber Pearson that SB 437 and SB 518 were two separate bills and nothing to do with the other. She's on record saying that, and now SB 437 is written into SB 518.
So since we have receipts and we're here, let's I mean, we're definitely gonna go over there. We might just go again. So yeah, so right here, ladies and gentlemen, the pin in it we talked about, right? What is this? Section 12192.5A. Says it right there. For purposes of the subdivision, notwithstanding by any other law, the division shall utilize the process established pursuant to Chapter 4.8 of the division is added by Senate Bill 437. Boom. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. There you have it. All right, so let's see what else. So yeah, and if you haven't followed ETM, please like, share, and subscribe. But we do have videos where we did live stream some of these committee hearings, and shout out to our good brother Michael Willis. Yeah, Michael Willis, who's a genealogist himself, who at first, I guess, supported what Senator Akilah Weber was doing, and he was actually a key witness for her in one of the earlier committee sessions, and ended up changing his mind after listening to the evidence, and was like, nah, I think, especially since we as genealogists have been doing this for quite some time, that, most likely the CSU will be coming to us anyway. And, anyway, we don't want to go to a whole big spiel on it. Just take a look at it. I mean, for those who support reparations here in California, at least for the lineage base, we're not in support of SB 437 because we know, not because we feel, but we know that it's our genealogists that have been doing the work should be first in line for this. And on top of that, the CSU system does not have a genealogy department.
And they have no plan as of yet. As of, when I went to the trustee meeting, they actually had no idea what they were supposed to be doing, what their responsibilities were with the bill, to tell the truth.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. Thank you, Sharice. We got to give you flowers, sister, for showing up and representing and, pound the pavement. And I was going to say asking a question, but I think you more commented in your delivery, which we greatly appreciate. Because look, and I got to give you a shout out, not only for showing up, but just putting that to our attention, what the CSU is planning to do, which sounds like nothing so far.
Yeah, unfortunately. And I talked with a supposed ally who's a reparations advocate, and they were going back and forth of whether they should show support for 518 and 437. And they were like, I really think this genealogy piece is good because that's something they do in their nonprofit. And I said, first of all, your nonprofit is not a genealogy service. I said, but if we're going to use the Cal States, we need to use them in a more effective and impactful manner. Mm-hmm. They can be used as a hub, almost like a DMV, for people to go take their genealogy paperwork and go get registered. But all of this, the evidence-based methods is a term that is in a language that is in these bills that's bothering me. That is, and I said this when I gave public comment at the trustee meeting, we are not science experiments. Senator Akilah Weber Pearson is a doctor. And when you are in the medical field and you're discussing diagnoses or studies about diseases and illnesses, what is the term that you use? Evidence-based methods of how to treat, of how to discover someone who has an illness. We are not science experiments. I just want to reiterate that. We are not science experiments. This has, in my opinion, this is a eugenic science experiment. This is wholly unacceptable to come from the Black community. Originally, it came from the governor's desk. He was the one. He's also not a genealogy expert. And so for them to take this up and then make it into a study from a medical perspective, really, is unacceptable and it's offensive. And I am disappointed that they wrote half a good bill in SB 518 and then included SB 437. That's not cool.
Duly noted. All right, let's see here. What else we have? Okay, let's go down. Okay, look at this update. The bill would authorize, the Bureau to receive monies, cha-ching-ching, from any federal, state, or local grant, and from any non-governmental entity as specified, and would continuously appropriate any non-general fund monies received for purposes of the Bureau. Ladies and gentlemen, that's why we read. So, Sharice, I have my opinion about this, but I'll let you, the beautiful queen herself, go first.
Looking like SB 1050. Am I saying the right bill that Senator Bradford wrote last year? The reparations fund, or maybe it's 1331 that didn't make it out of.
Yeah, it was 1331.
It's looking real 1331ish to me. But also, there are two other points I will make. I know for a fact that there are allies who live in the state of California who want to donate to something like this. So this is good. So they've been talking to some folks, right? This also is going to, I think they mentioned that this is not a receipt of public funds. This bill, they wouldn't be, I think up above.
You want to go up higher a little bit?
Yeah, it mentions something about the funds that are going out would not be a public benefit, et cetera, et cetera. I think they did that on purpose, so as to not have a issue, because the enemy is tracking these bills. But also, I lost my train of thought. That's okay.
It's all good. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think it was at the bottom. Let's see. The bill would authorize. Let me see. I think it was at the bottom. Subdivision, Constitution.
What else I have to say? If they had not allocated $6 million to the Tides Foundation in 1980, they could have had $6 million to stand up the Bureau for a year or two, because again, this is an agency under an agency. The Civil Rights Department is already funded. That's not going anywhere. So you could have had at least your director and maybe one or two employees to start executing, etc., coming up with the mission statement, all of those things. But you get other $6 million to the Tides Foundation, which the Tides Foundation is not mentioned by name, but they reference the appropriation for the Tides, that other $6 million that's going to the Tides Foundation is referenced in this bill.
Right, which is also referenced in the budget bill. Section 15.80. Let's see here. Let's go down a little bit. Okay, I think it's self-explanatory. Okay, so just to reiterate, this bill is no longer, or this bureau is no longer going to be under the DOJ, Department of Justice, but the Civil Rights Department. So that's just to reiterate that. All right, let's keep going down. Okay, so we went over this. Now that SB 437 is attached to 518, this is going to be crazy, because we're like, okay, well, what happens if SB 518 doesn't pass? What happens if SB 437 doesn't? What happens if one of these two bills, how does this play out? If this bill passes, but this doesn't pass, and this bill passes. So, yeah. So
this bureau is able to come up with its own mission statement. I think that is a good thing. That whoever's working there, or the executive director, whoever, can help formulate the mission statement. But as far as paragraph 5 goes, if 437 does not pass, that means that the bureau gets to decide or determine the factors of genealogy, because it's already doing that. And I want to share again, when this bill was labeled SB 490 last year, I sent a very strongly worded email to Assemblymember Corey Jackson's office, because they had not included that bill as part of their priority package. And what did I say to them? I said, I was very firm in my brief communication with Dr. Jackson that you cannot try to issue reparations without first gathering data. Know who's eligible. SB 490 is a perfect vehicle to ascertain such information. So I do think this focus on genealogy and not, they've removed some of the other provisions, the land return. My concern with that is how many people would actually be able to benefit from that. That would be a very small, very, very small number. Maybe we can count on two hands the number of descendants that would be able to benefit from that. So I do think this focus on the legal aspect and the genealogy aspect is very important, because that's foundational.
All right. Let's go over some of these updates here. To accomplish the goals of the subdivision and collaborate with colleges and university. Okay, so we mentioned Section 15.80 of the Budget Act of 2024. All right, and in the Budget Act, both the CSU and, as Sharice mentioned, the Tides organization is mentioned actually in that bill. $6 million going to CSU. The other $6 million, totaling $12 million, is going to Tides.
Okay, I also want to mention, it says the division may collaborate, even though this references the CSU and Tides. This is not a must. It's a may.
Very good point. So right here, you're saying where it says the division may collaborate with college?
Collaborate.
Gotcha.
All of these entities, but I can tell you from experience, there is a set of criteria that's set up, or that most likely will be set up for individuals to either receive, like say the agency or bureau issues grants. There's going to be criteria to set up, and they're going to have to meet that minimum criteria to actually receive the grant and apply for it. It's not going to be, a handshake, or these are a list of organizations, because somewhere in here it mentions donating money, and the person who donates cannot influence policy. But there's not going to be any handshaking and distributing of funds going on. I will say that.
We will see. Even if this bill passes, they always say, well, that's not going to happen. And then,
true.
It happen.
Like I said, from experience, the money has to be approved through a process, and there's contract analysts that have to look at it. There's a head of the housing department. But there's a separate division of finance. I'm just saying there's multiple layers that a check will have to go through an approval process before money goes out the door from this agency. The picture, yeah.
So let's get on paper. So that's now how it's actually processed and pushed forward. That's a whole different ballgame, but. Let's see here. Noticing in the law, the Bureau may receive monies from. Okay, let's just briefly go over section 12915. It says, notwithstanding any of the law, the Bureau may receive monies from any federal, state, or local grant, and from any non-governmental entity, including from any private donation or grant for the purposes of this chapter. Sharice, so what do you think about this? I mean, just give my 2 cents. I don't know. I think it is a good thing. I'm glad that, they're able to extend outside of, the government. But even though they're saying, the private donations shouldn't dissuade or persuade anything dealing with the the Bureau itself, do you see any conflict of interest, from this, especially when it's saying, receiving from federal, when I know eventually, the federal government is not off the hook, it's definitely on the hook for reparations.
I see what you're saying. So it depends on the appropriations at the federal level, what the monies are appropriated for. So, for instance, there are federal appropriations that come to California, and they are distributed to this or that agency. The state agency cannot use the funds for what they want, because they have to send a report back to the federal government. So if the federal government authorizes it for housing, they may be able to use it for housing, but because federal law is not up to par, with this particular bill, they probably will not be able to use it that way unless there's a federal bill that mirrors something like this that recognizes descendants, just like they do with Native Americans, which is why I think they should have gone with that legal analysis. But hey, we'll tackle that another day. So I would say for right now, there's not going to be what you might call a conflict of interest, or the federal government saying we already gave y'all money, because the federal government has its own laws and rules that apply to monies that are appropriated to the states. Now, if you're talking about grants or private money, Dr. Darity talks about a reparations super fund in his book From Here to Equality. That's something that I talked about to the task force when we had that first in-person hearing in San Francisco. The concept was actually created, or someone else came up with the idea years ago. But again, a reparations super fund. And so that is what this looks like to me, just a pot of money. Again, SB 1331 all over again. Which I'm actually happy about. And no, I don't really see a conflict of interest, because again, the laws are going to have to line up with what this bureau is trying to do, if they are to give the money, because they do have to report that.
All right. So is there anything else you want to mention here before we go on?
Nope. Sounds good to me.
All right. We will get past all this redactive information. All right. Damn. All right. So let's see. There's government sponsored harm. Okay. So that's the end of that. Is there anything overall, SB 58? Oh, there's one more thing I did want to mention here. I want to get your take on this. And then we'll go to AB 57, because I know you wanted to talk about AB 57, a couple more bills, and then we'll be wrapping up shortly, fam. Oh, got to read the comments before we leave. So can't forget the chat. Thanks everyone for joining. Please like, share, and subscribe. All right, where am I at? Okay, rep task force. All right. Oops. Okay, let's see here. All right, so here we go. So as I mentioned earlier, so it's specified, and to recommend the form of compensation that should be awarded, the instrumentalities through which it should be awarded, and who should be eligible for this compensation. Okay. It's interesting, like what is like first, I guess technically second paragraph if we're considering the first. All right. So, I mean, I'm probably preaching to the choir here, Sharice, but what are your thoughts on this recommendation here about compensation in comparison to SB 518?
So I don't have AB 3121 in front of me, but I'm assuming that's where that first paragraph came from, was from AB 3121, and it just cut and paste. And I will say, I've said this before, it's very important when we're talking about bills that pertain to our community that we be very precise and exact, that we don't leave anything to anyone's imagination or interpretation or misinterpretation, that we have to be, when we have these type of task force, be very clear and definite on the harm that we are trying to remedy, or harms that we are trying to remedy. And that's what I'll say about that. So I think this was just a cut and paste.
All right. I mean, I think for me, which is it's like sticks out with a sore thumb, is that it literally talks about compensation here, yet it seems like all the money. I understand you have to build the process. I get it. We understand. We got it. Boom. But as of yet, at least with 1331, SB 1331, to actually establish the, apparatus, the foundation to start creating how we're going to, pay out the bills. Uncompared to last year, I could be wrong, Sharice, but have the CLBC or anybody in the legislative even remotely have come close to recommendation of any form of compensation?
I think Tina McKenna's bill is probably the closest.
And that would be what, 57 or 62?
The down payment assistance.
Okay. So
Yeah.
all right. Well, yeah. Well, close.
Close.
No.
There's a cash component.
All right. So, you know what? Let's go to, since we're talking about Tina McKenna. All right, AB 57, California Dream for All program. This is a relatively quick read, so I'm going to read through this one. And I know, Sharice, you wanted to talk about this, and I'll let you, give your 2 cents after I get this done. All right, so here we go. AB 57, the California Dream for All program, descendants of formerly enslaved people. All right, introduced by Assemblymember McKenna. Co-authors, Assembly members Bonta, Bryan, El Harari, Gibson, Jackson, Cara, Ortega, Ransom, Sharp, Collins, and Wilson. Senators Richardson, Smallwood, Cuevas, and Weber, Pearson. All right. AB 57 as amended. McKenna, California Dream for All program, descendants of formerly enslaved people. Existing law establishes the California Housing Finance Agency in the Department of Housing and Community Development, and authorizes the agency to, among other things, make loans to finance affordable housing, including residential structures, housing developments, multifamily rental housing, special needs housing, and other forms of housing as specified. Existing law establishes the California Dream for All program to provide shared appreciation loans to qualified first-time home buyers as specified. Existing law establishes in the state treasury the California Dream for All Fund, which is continuously appropriated for expenditure pursuant to the program as specified. This bill would require, upon establishment of the certification process for the descendants of American slavery established by the Bureau for Descendants of American Slavery, at least 10% of the monies in the fund to be reserved for applicants who meet the requirements for a loan under the program and have been certified as descendants of formerly enslaved people as specified. This bill would become operative only if SB 518 of the 2025-2026 regular session is enacted and takes effect on or before January 1st, 2027, and establishes the Bureau for Descendants of American Slavery. Vote majority, appropriation no, fiscal committee yes, local program no. The people of the state of California do enact as follows. Section 1. Section 51523 of the Health and Safety Code is amended to read 51523A. The California Dream for All program is hereby established to provide shared appreciation loans to qualified first-time home buyers. The program shall be limited to providing assistance to low and moderate income home buyers in the purchase of owner-occupied homes. The agency, subject to the availability of funds for the purposes of this chapter, shall implement and administer the California Dream for All program in accordance with this chapter. B1. In implementing this part, the agency shall adopt policies, rules, and regulations by resolution of the board of directors of the agency and consistent with this part to achieve all the following. Provide assistance to meaningful, expand access to home ownership, expand opportunities for California households to accumulate wealth for themselves and their families. I'll go on to C. Maximize the number of households assisted over time by exploring and implementing methods for selling subordinate and second mortgages originated pursuant to this chapter to investors in order to generate additional funding for the program, establishing a revolving shared appreciation for first-time home buying program with the goal of eventually providing up to $1 billion per year for first-time home buyers. The amount of assistance shall only be made available in conjunction with first mortgage loan financing provided by the agency, and funds available pursuant to this chapter shall also be available for interest rate, buy downs, and closing cost assistance for that first mortgage for loan financing. Any funds made available for interest rate buy downs shall be made in conjunction with a shared appreciation loan. All repayments shall be deposited into the fund for ongoing use in the program. Sustainability for the agency without significantly adversely affecting its borrowing capacity or ability to meet other affordable housing or agency needs, adequate consumer protection and consumer disclosure. Protections, policies, rules, and regulations adopted pursuant to this part shall not be subject to Chapter 3.5 of Part 1 of Division 3 of Title 2 of the Government Code. Upon establishment of the certification process for the descendants of American slavery established by the Bureau for Descendants of American Slavery, at least 10% of the monies in the fund shall be reserved for applicants who meet the requirements for a loan under the program and have been certified as descendants of formerly enslaved people by the Bureau for Descendants of American Slavery. This act shall become operative only if Senate Bill 518 of the 2025-2026 regular session is enacted and takes effect on or before January 1st, 2027, and establishes the Bureau for Descendants of American Slavery. Yes, ma'am.
So this was already under the housing department, this particular program and bill. So it makes sense that they moved SB 518 over, so everything can be in under one umbrella. These are going to be in different parts of the housing agency, but everything is going to be under the housing agency. So for this particular bill, you still have to qualify for the California Dream for All loan program. And I believe this was the program they tried to get the undocumented folks in last year.
Yep.
And so it's a set aside. This is something we already do in California. We have a set aside, and it's not a like preset amount by bill. I think it's based on availability of funds, but we have set asides for the tribal communities. So especially in the housing department, there are set asides. Their money is carved out. And when they have funds that go out, the funds that are going out when they present the funds to the community for people to apply, or agencies or governmental entities to apply, the tribal entities have their own application process. This is something we already do. So this is why I think this is a good bill. This is a guide of how our stuff should be set aside or segregated out, just like Native Americans. And again, my comparison, my legal analysis has always been, we should use the Bureau of Indian Affairs and Tribal Affairs Agency and the rules and laws around that as a guide of how to do this. And this is what I believe this bill does. And I don't think, Tina McKenna may have not been thinking about that, but I think this is a great example. Folks are always saying we need to get interest-free loans. This is an interest-free loan. And I will tell you, I did not apply to this program. Some years ago, there was another down payment assistance program that I applied for, and they ran my credit several times, and I got the runaround. I never got the money. I never got the loan. They ran my credit so many times that it came up when you pull my credit report up. It said I had too many hits. I had too many inquiries. So this is things that we have been asking for. And this is, something I know we haven't really talked about it amongst, some of the local reparations activists, but we ask for things and sometimes we get them. Sometimes, other times we don't, but sometimes we get them. And I think this is one of the things that we got. And we need to celebrate this as a win. And hopefully this passes, but it's contingent upon SB 518, which is also contingent upon, well, it's not contingent upon SB 437, but it's contingent upon SB 518 being passed, which I think is interesting. And I have my thoughts about why they did it like that. What do you think?
All right. So a grant would be better. But this acts like a grant because it's a mortgage on the home, but it's not in first position, and it's forgivable. Sorry, not forgivable. I think it's forgivable. I can't remember the terms, but either it's forgivable or you pay it back when you sell the home. It's not that you have to pay it back while you're living in the home. If you sell the home, then you have to pay it back. If that makes sense. Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it acts like a grant. It's a silent mortgage on a silent second, basically, on the home.
All right. Yeah, it's kind of something like what they did with the PP loans, if I'm correct. When they're giving out all them checks during the quote unquote pandemic. I'm not gonna say pandemic. So yeah, I mean, I think this is definitely positive. I don't think it's a negative thing, but once again, it's contingent upon SB 518. And if history repeats itself, well, you know how that one's gonna go.
Yes, and I would say I worked at the SBA during the pandemic, so I worked EIDL loans that you're talking about, and you had 18 months, I believe, of grace forgiveness, and then you had to start paying those back. But the interest rate was very low. So this is not like this is different. But again, you don't have to pay this back unless you sell the home.
All right. Okay. I want to quickly mention, let's see here. So for those that don't know, this SB 388, the California Latino Commission, is going to be heard on the assembly floor. All right. And from my understanding, this commission didn't have a prior task force or committee or 2.5 year
Or a study.
or a study to study some more of the study. So it looks like this bill is moving through. Obviously it passed in the Senate. Now it's over here in the Assembly. And I just wanted to mention just this update here. So it says the commission member shall serve, initially it was a 4-year term, but then they revised it to a 2-year term. And then let's see what else. There's something that stood out. Okay. And then at the end it says this chapter shall remain in effect only upon January 1st, 2036, as of that date is repealed. So it looks like this commission, if so approved, if I understand this correctly, from 2026 to 2036 would be 10 years in effect. So, yep. I could go into like the benefits and so forth, but I'll let everybody else on their own time read, what this Latino Commission is. Once again, that's SB 388, and you can find that on Legi Info. Just type in SB 388. And as a matter of fact, you know what? I'll go ahead, since we're here. I'll just put it in the comments.
Are there any Republicans that signed on to this bill?
That's a great question. You know what? I'm not too sure. Let's find out, shall we? All right. So when you mean by signed on, are you talking about authored it, or are you talking about who voted?
Yes, well, actually both would be good to see, because if they have a problem with our bill, I'm not sure why then they would vote for something like this.
All right. So let's see. All right. So hopefully everybody can see my screen here. All right. So let's see. Senators Padilla, Cervantes, Hurtado, and Rubio. Gonzalez. I believe all those are
Democrats.
Mm-hmm. And then we have members Carrillo and Ortega, Arguin, Menjivar, co-authors Calderon, Gonzalez, Quirk Silva, Celeste Rodriguez, Solach, and Zuber.
I think is Celeste Rodriguez
Here, let me just double check. They're in the assembly. Okay. California Assembly. Yeah, I want to say Celeste Rodriguez is Democrat, but I could be wrong. All right, so it's thinking, man, this update to the assembly, which is great. I'm glad that they actually did update their website, but sometimes it gets a little slow on my end. Here, let's go do this because it's moving super slow. All right, Celeste Rodriguez. Assembly. Okay, let's see here. She is bump. All right, I'm pretty sure she's a Democrat, but here, let me see. What does it say here? Said Los Angeles clean the whole city. Some raising up, professional, singer associated. Candidates say, I want to say.
I think it might be.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's a Democrat. Here, let me see. Yeah, I'm still waiting on this assembly. Okay, here we go. All right, schedule, committees, members, member roster. All right. Celeste Rodriguez. Let's see, Celeste. Oh, here we go. She is a Democrat. All right. Let's see. Zuber, Democrat. Yeah, so I believe most of those, let me go back to the bill here, are Democrats.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I wonder if they have who voted on here. Let me see. Bill, history, votes. All right, so
Sanchez voted no.
Sanchez was like, nope. I know somebody the other day was talking about Sanchez and blah, blah, blah. So here you go. She was like, nope. Dixon, no. Ta, no. Tangipa, those are all Republicans who was like, no votes or no's.
Yeah, they've been waging protest votes, it seems like.
Yep. So, but this did pass appropriations 11-2, as you could see, with no votes recorded, which is basically a no vote.
Yeah.
So, yep. There you go. So whoever queried about Sanchez, she voted no against the Latino Commission. All right, family. So let's get into the comments here, and then we will wrap up. All right. So let's go. Start at the top. Tippy top. Boom, ba-da-bum. Shout out to Miss Monique. Always love you for coming through. No property for us. Thank you. Sean, what's up? How you doing, sis? Always appreciate you and your work in the community. Have no faith in the governor. Really? Come on, Monique. All right. Shout out to Free Peeps. Newsom's plan is to run for president and be nowhere around when Slavery Bureau director is selected.
We'll see about that.
I know, right?
We'll see.
All right. Fact Sharice. Give some love to Sharice in the building.
Hey, sis Monique.
Sean in the building. Okay, let's see. Going through. Grifty. AB7 is also dependent on SB 437. Very interesting. Now, AB7, I think that's Bryant's bill, right?
I haven't heard anything about.
I haven't heard a dang thing about AB7.
I haven't heard anything about it. So, was it a priority part of the priority package?
Yeah. Here, let me look at it just real quick. And
He was talking about sending that bill to the trying to get that to go to the Supreme Court. I think that's a mistake. We don't have to do.
yeah, because I think there was some like color language in there, right, or something like that. Here, let me take this off here real quick. All right, we'll get back to you. AB7. Here we go. What was AB7? What was it? AB7 is also dependent on SB 437.
I'm not sure if
You mean 518 maybe? Let's see.
Yeah, they haven't amended it since July. There's been no. Looks like there's been no movement. Even though Brian said he's hoping or he's anticipating it will get to the governor's desk. It does have the same language as SB 518. Let's see if it's any different.
518 commencing criterion freedom through gradual. Okay, so some of that information. Missions preference. I don't see anything saying. Let's see, post secondary. Yeah, maybe some of the language might be the same. Maybe it's 518, but I don't see anything saying it's dependent upon any other bill unless something we don't know. But
Is there any status on? I haven't seen any movement since. Looks like since July.
let's see. Last amended July 3rd.
Yeah.
Read second time. Ordered to third reading. So it passed the House. Okay, so let's see where it's at right now. So it did pass the Senate appropriation. So it looks like it's going to the floor in the Senate side for sure.
Yeah, I think I don't think we need this. I have been asking them to amend this bill. And I don't want to say online what my suggested amendments are because you don't let your enemy know what you're doing. But there are things we are already doing in the state. And they could change this bill and make all of this language. They could transfer it into what the state has already approved for higher education. And I'll leave it at that. And it has nothing to do with admissions. I think what they're trying to do, or what, Brian said he's trying to do, is test the legal validity of, someone who is the descendant. And I'm like, not with this Supreme Court, not at this time, not with this administration. I would not try to go, and that's what I think he's trying to attempt to do. I don't know why everybody thinks that they can have this legal battle with these anti-affirmative action, anti-black racists head on. That is not that's not a good idea. That's not a good legal strategy. And I don't know if they're doing this for ego purposes or to beat their own chest. But again, this is not a good legal strategy. You have someone who I believe was placed by the Federalist Society on the Supreme Court to do their bidding. And that person has already said, Friedman is a under-inclusive proxy for race. Like, why are we having this discussion out in the open? No, go change the bills that are already on file and include this language. Excuse me, the bills that have already been passed by the legislature and have been signed into law by the governor. Go change those bills instead of trying to be funny, because if this goes to the Supreme Court and they say the Senate is, what we gonna do then? What we gonna do then?
Shout out to the CLBC. All right. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, that's the update on AB 7. So
I'm a no on AB 7. A no, because the strategy is wrong.
Strategy is wrong. All right. Let's continue here. Where we at? I have no idea what this means. Oh, reposted the stream. Thank you. I appreciate it for reposting the stream. Wilkins, thank you for reposting. Thanks for clarifying so many things. Heart you, Raphael, always in the building. Appreciate you, Raphael, for all the great work that you do.
Hey, Miss yeah.
Freed Peeps again says descendant verification is tied to SB 437, which makes AB 57 contingent on it.
Possibly. It depends on how the governor, if it makes it to his desk, how his office reads the bill. They could read it that it is contingent, and they could read it that it's not contingent. Depends.
So similar to the Japanese repair legislation, where is scheduled for a certain period of time?
No, ours, we have a greater harm, more harms, longer time period. Ours, I don't believe SB 518 had a end date. This is going to be, if it passes, a permanent sub-agency. I didn't see anything that was temporary except the Latino Commission. So I'm not sure. I think they're talking about the Latino Commission. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That would make more sense. 7 is Brian's bill. Yep. This is not 87, but that's still 2. Okay. All right. Let's see. I think the Japanese comparison was in regards to the Latino clarification.
Thank you. Yeah, got it.
He's not trying to test. He's trying to sabotage. Yeah.
That's what I think too, because there's no way that you would think that's a good idea to try to go to the Supreme Court, because he said he wrote this bill himself. So he didn't consult any lawyers before. He consulted the lawyers after. And I reached out to his office multiple times over and over again about the language in the bill and how their strategy is a bad idea trying to go to the Supreme Court. That's foolishness.
Right.
Yes, exactly. It is affirmative action. It's affirmative action. Why would you write an affirmative action bill when guess what goes into effect in September? The second ban on legacy and priority admissions. That was the second iteration of a bill to ban privacy and legacy admissions in the state of California, goes into effect in September. So why would you introduce a bill when we already have 2 bills on the books that ban priority and legacy admissions? Why would you do that?
Great question. Only Assembly Member Brian would know. But he's not blocking bills, though. He's not blocking bills. So yes, Sharice, always appreciate you. Thanks again for coming on the platform. Giving us your perspective and us reading through these bills. Got a lot of work to do, and we do what we can to give people this information. So if at minimum, family, just share this content, share this video, so we can all somehow get educated and be up to date on things. A no on AB 7 for sure. During the hearings, there was a question regarding possible Prop 209. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
He did not write it. That is like saying Newsom had nothing to do with what happened in 2024. That bill was given to him.
It's possible, but that's what he has recited that he wrote the bill himself. So, he helped to author AB 3121. And he has this, I'll say, confidence about himself. He doesn't need any help.
Chested.
Huh?
Said he's full chested about it, huh?
Full chested. So.
All right, fam. Well, we're going to get out of here. You know what? Everybody just keep up to date on what's happening here. Keep your eyes open, head on a swivel, and, family, just keep aware. Whatever you do, just keep the boots on the ground and keep doing what you're doing. So before we get out of here, Sharice, any words, may they be kind or not, before we leave out of here?
No on SB 437. SB 518 still needs to be updated, but there is some hope for that bill. No on AB 7, and that's all I got.
That's all you got. Well, you got a lot. We definitely appreciate you, family. So, everyone, yes, thank you very much, Tomboy Schism Marketing Design. Thank you for coming through. Thank you guys for your dedication to informative education. Well, thank you. We appreciate you, because without you, there'd be no we. All right. So on that note, family, you guys have a great evening. And once these bills come up to the floor, I mean, most likely we'll be streaming them. I mean, that will be most likely. But once we know, then you will know. We'll definitely be watching and seeing where these bills will go, because they may not be going anywhere. Who knows? All right. So everybody have a great day, and we will see you next time. As always, you guys take care of yourself, and we are out of here. Peace, and definitely lineage-based reparations.
Have a good night.
Please move item 7172 to the inactive file.
I just want to know, what did you know about bills not being brought to the floor? The two critical reparation bills, Senate Bill 1403 and Senate Bill 13.
Forgive me, because there's over 1,000. I'm not very good at the numeric, but
it's gonna. The analysis said it's only a couple $1 million to stand it up. And his response was, "We want to do it in a different way. We don't want to do it through creating a whole new bureau. We want to do it through the UC system."
So this is Assemblyman Mr. Bryan. He's mad I brought up the reparations vote. So he's preventing me from speaking. And he's trying to block my access to it.
Madam Speaker, I ask that we take up file item 71, SB 1331.
If you decide to start your family tree even without the DNA, 8 or 9 times out of 10, you're going to find your family.
A great number of African Americans can trace their lineage to the period of enslavement.
Lemert was developed by Walter H. Lemert, and in his designing this area, he actually had covenants to where they would not sell to black people.
I supported the bill all session. Then bring the bill.
Will you vote?
CLBC, can you give them a grade 1 to 10?
This current crop, as of now, it's a negative.
Vote for the bill, Mr.
Bring the bill.
Will you vote for the bill?
Bring it up.
Will you vote for reparations?
Bring it up.
I would love it.
Bring it up.
Let's vote for reparations
Bring
together.
It's a spirit of anti-blackness, and we must call it out. And so I'm going to call out on August 31st, 2024, that the California Legislative Black Caucus, the majority of them, and the governor allowed the enemy to use them to try to keep us down and keep us as bottom-class citizens.
Just think that all the other members have at least about 10 years left. So we're not going anywhere.
I've heard it's slightly changed, and some of the advocates who were part of the coalition last go around are now expressing concerns of whether or not they'll still be able to stand behind it if those changes are not corrected.
In so many years, it will hardly be no black folks left in California. We love y'all, we thank y'all, and we demanding reparations right now.
First of all, America, from the evidence that they gave us, you're guilty.
What happened on August 31st, 2024 was a betrayal.
We know that if we don't have our hand in this process as much as we possibly can, it can be corrupted from the outside. So in terms of our role isn't done until they're issuing the checks for our reparations.
The time for reparations is now.
Yeah.
It's now.